What if I told you that the most frustrating parts of memorizing the Quran, those verses that are almost identical and always trip you up, what if they're not mistakes? What if they're actually secret signposts? Today we're going to uncover a hidden architectural layer inside the Quran, a design so beautiful it can turn the whole challenge of memorization into a journey of incredible discovery.
You know the feeling, right? If you've ever tried to memorize the Quran, you've been there. You're reciting, everything is flowing beautifully, and then bam! You hit a verse that is almost a mirror image of one from another chapter, but with one tiny little word changed or moved. It can just completely throw you off. So frustrating.
Okay, let's look at a classic example. In both Surah Al-Qasas and Surah Yasin, there's a story about a man who comes running from the farthest part of the city. Same guy, same action. But just look at the word order. In one, the word for man, rajulun, comes before farthest part of the city. In the other, it comes after. This is the perfect example of a tiny detail that's so easy to mix up. But here's a thought. What if these aren't random traps designed to make you stumble? What if they're actually deliberate, perfectly placed signposts, pointing to a much bigger, more breathtaking structure? A design that, once you see it, makes memorizing not just easier, but actually a really exciting journey of discovery.
So let's zoom out for a second and look at this grand design. Scholars have noticed this absolutely incredible pattern. You can view the Quran as having 7 distinct groups, and each of those groups has 5 surahs. Think of it like a beautiful framework that connects entire chapters together based on something they all share.
That's right, 7 of these special groupings. And inside each one are 5 different surahs that are all connected, either by a common theme or, and this is what's really cool, by the exact words they start with. So for instance, you've got this one group of 5 surahs, and they all kick off with alhamd, or words of praise. Then there's another set of 5 that all start with tasbih, the act of glorification. And another group begins with a direct call, a nidat, like, "O you who believe." The moment you see these connections, this amazing symmetry just starts to pop out from the text. And it just keeps going. There's a set of 5 surahs that open with the letters alif, lam, ra. Another 5 that begin with a question, an istifham. And maybe the most well-known, 5 that begin with the command kul, which means say. All of a sudden, you're not just looking at 114 separate chapters anymore. You're seeing these interconnected families of surahs. It's amazing.
Okay, so that's the big picture design. But how does knowing all this actually help us with those super tricky, almost identical verses we talked about? Well, let's zoom right back in and build ourselves a little toolkit of simple, powerful rules that can solve these puzzles for good.
Let's circle back to our very first problem, that man from the city. The solution is this awesome little mnemonic. The man is second in Yasin. It's really that simple. When you're reciting Surah Yasin, you just remember that the word from man, rajulan, is the second part of that phrase. So in the other surah, Al-Qasas, it has to be first. And just like that, problem solved.
All right, here's another one that gets everybody. Remember that group of surahs that start with glorification? Well, some of them start with the past tense verb, sabbaha, but others start with the present tense, yusabbihu. How in the world do you keep them straight without just taking a wild guess? Well, the solution here is this incredibly clever pattern called the dotted letter rule. It's brilliant. It actually links the opening word to the Arabic spelling of the surah's name. So if the first letter of the surah's name has dots, like the ta in Tagabun or the jim in Jumu'ah, it starts with the present tense, yusabbihu. And if the first letter has no dots, like the ha in Hadid or the sad in Saf, it starts with the past tense, sabbaha. It's a hidden code right there in the script itself. How cool is that?
Let's try another one. In both Surah Al-Hadid and At-Tahrim, we find this beautiful verse about the light of the believers striving before them. But, you guessed it, the word order is flipped. The rule is beautifully simple. Put yas'a first in Al-Hadid. The word for striving, yas'a, comes at the beginning of the phrase in that surah. So by default, you know it has to come second in At-Tahrim. Easy.
Okay, now for a rule that's wrapped up in a wonderful story. It just goes to show how these amazing memory aids have been passed down with so much love from teachers to their students for generations.
So you have the phrase, have they not traveled through the land? This verse pops up multiple times in the Quran, asking us to look at the lessons of history. But remembering exactly which surahs have this specific phrasing can be a real headache. So the story goes that a Quran teacher gave his student this simple, beautiful prayer to help him remember the 4 surahs. He just told him, remember this phrase, "May Allah forgive the pilgrim, Muhammad Yusuf." It's so easy to remember because it's so meaningful.
And let's break down the genius of this prayer. Each key word points you to one of the surahs. Ghafara, which means forgave, points you straight to Surah Ghafir. Al-Hajj, the pilgrim, obviously points to Surah Al-Hajj. And then, of course, the names Muhammad and Yusuf point you right to their own surahs. A really tricky problem solved with just one elegant, heartfelt sentence.
So what's the point of all this? The crucial thing to understand is that when we learn these rules and these groupings and these little memory tricks, we're doing so much more than just memorizing. We are actually changing our entire relationship with the Quran itself.
Memorization stops being this repetitive, sometimes frustrating chore, and it becomes this active process of discovery. You start to see the complex, mathematical, and linguistic beauty that's woven into every single page. You're not just recalling words anymore. You're appreciating a divine, deliberate, and perfect structure.
And listen, these are just a handful of the patterns that scholars and students have found over the centuries. And it leaves you with this truly profound question. If all these layers of meaning and structure are here, what other beautiful patterns are still just lying there waiting for us to discover them?